It's time to talk about my experience at the Chiefs-Panthers game. But before we get to that, we got to talk about what happened this past weekend, Week 12 of the 2024 NFL season. Welcome back to the First and Gold podcast. I am your host, Sam Gold, back again with another recap. And we have our usual setup. So let's start with a 2-minute drill, what we love doing most, which is covering the games that we don't need to get too in-depth about, but we want to cover, a couple sentences, couple things about it in a 2-minute span. So we'll get that timer out, and we'll start with these games now. All right, Patriots, Dolphins, 34-15. The Dolphins win it. They're on a hot streak, but for some reason, Tyreek Hill is not the face of this offense right now. They're going through Jonnu Smith, Devon Achane. So props to the Dolphins for finding ways to win without Tyreek Hill so far. Bucks Giants 30-7. Baker Mayfield flying into the end zone and immediately disrespecting Tommy DeVito with this celebration. That was pretty much the only highlight from that game I cared about. Also, Daniel Jones off the team now. Complete disaster. We're going to talk a lot about the Giants in the offseason. Just terrible. Lions, Colts, 24-6. Literally nothing else to say from this. The Lions were clearly the better team. They played like it. Good for them. Denver, Las Vegas, 29-19. Bo Nix is on a hot streak. And with the fall of the Commanders, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, yeah, I think it's time to give Bo Nix Offensive Rookie of the Year so far. Packers, 49ers, 38-10. Now, Brock Purdy and Nick Bosa were both out in this game, so it felt like this was the Packers' game to win. Now, did I think it was going to be this much of a blowout? No, but props to Jordan Love. Finally, a cleaner game. Josh Jacobs went completely off. He's been super consistent this season. So, look, the 49ers fall to 5-6, last place in their division. Can they climb themselves out of this? I don't know. We'll see. And then Seahawks, Cardinals, a weird game, 16-6. The Seahawks have climbed back 2 straight wins and now went back to first place. And the Cardinals keep doing this. They are so inconsistent. They were on a hot streak, and then all of a sudden they put up 6 points, and Kyler Murray looks completely lost. Throws a pick 6. I don't know what happens. Just a weird division overall. And then finally, I know people want us to talk about this more in depth. We're going to say Browns, Pittsburgh, 24-19. All I got to say is Jameis Winston is back. I love when he plays good. And man, what a great atmosphere. Snow game. And just the biggest trap game you could have for the Steelers. Of course it was a trap game. So a lot of fun. That was the 2-minute drill. And we have 6 other games to talk about a little more in depth. So let's start with number 6. This is the Titans versus the Texans. I didn't think I'd really have to talk about this game too much, but it ended up being really close and an upset. The Titans come out 32-27. CJ Stroud pulls a Dan Orlovsky at the end of the game and gets sacked out of the back of his own end zone, takes a safety. Their kicker, Kaimi Fairbairn, who's been great this season, missed at the end as well, which we're going to get into that. Bad week for kickers all around, except for our kicker. But we'll get to that later. Yeah, 32-27. Will Levis, he's going to make for a great backup one day. He really is. I don't think he is a sustainable starter still, even though his highs are really high. And he is one of the best arm talents and arm strengths in the NFL. And I think that shows on a lot of those deep touchdowns that he has. I love watching that. And he just ended up having a really good game. Now, I think the main story coming out of this game, of course, is the Texans. And the fact that not only is CJ Stroud really going through a sophomore slump, I really tried to stay confident about the Texans this season. We have multiple clips that came out of me really backing them and saying, look, kind of like how the Chiefs are, they're winning close games. It might be ugly, but they're learning how to do it in all these different scenarios where it's not just blowing out a team. But now it's getting to a point where the defense and CJ Stroud's play. And look, I know Stephon Diggs is out for the rest of the season. They just got Nico Collins back. And 27 points isn't bad. But this team is just very clunky and inconsistent. And I just don't know if their ceiling is any more than what it was last year. And I think that's going to be disappointing. Now, they're still most likely winning their division, of course. But it sucks. I wanted CJ Stroud to play better. Maybe teams were able to figure out some of his stuff from last year, just having a whole summer of tape on him. I don't think this is going to be a telling sign of what his career is going to be. I do think CJ Stroud is still going to be a great quarterback. It's just one of those sophomore slumps so far. And there's still 6 games left in the season. So if they can just win the division and maybe have a couple better wins, this was just one of those weird divisional games that was an upset where their defense just could not, get over the Will Levis ceiling game hump there. So, look, I think a lot of people are down on the Texans right now, kind of like with the Commanders. We'll get to them later. Just teams that had a lot of hype at the beginning of the season, and their quarterbacks were playing better, and now they're playing a little bit worse. There's that meme going around that CJ Stroud is playing. There's a selfie of like an old guy that looks like CJ Stroud, and it's really funny. And they're just saying he's playing like that guy. So, look, Texans fans, just be happy you're in an easy division right now. And hopefully things will get better. All right, number 5. This game was a blowout, but I put it in just because, we got to shout out somebody once again. It's Eagles-Rams. The Eagles win 37-20. Now, shout out Mole Daddy once again. He responded back. I got to respond again. And basically, I just got to give my weekly Eagles update at this point. Not only because of Mole Daddy, but look, they're one of the best teams in the NFL. And now they are strongly pushing for another Super Bowl. And this is a completely inverse season where it feels like we went back in time where these running back additions have actually worked out finally. You go ahead and pay a big star running back. And Saquon Barkley, over 300 total yards this past game, 46 fantasy points. And yes, I'm going to go out and say right now, I don't think he's going to win it because fuck the NFL and the fact that all they do is pick quarterbacks for this award. But he truly, especially if he beats Eric Dickerson's award, has to win MVP. I mean, have you seen, I was completely wrong about the Eagles. Have you seen a guy make this much of an impact at this low of a price when you knew he was already a great player? He's having by far his best season. He is now making his case. If he has more seasons like this, he is making his case for the Hall of Fame. This is the guy you saw out of college in Saquon Barkley. 300 total yards is crazy. So the fact that he's making this much of an impact, mix that with their defense actually playing up to par. They were disastrous at the second half of last year. Now they're top 10 in most categories, and that's helping, calm down the offense and taking the pressure off of Jalen Hurts and the play callers and all the business with Nick Sirianni that I don't like. They're on a hot streak now, and yes, I am going to assume that the Eagles are making at least the NFC Championship. There you go, Molt Daddy. Is that what you wanted? I'm not going to pick him for the Super Bowl just yet because we just haven't seen the matchup with the Lions. And the Lions are also completely rolling right now, and they have a great run defense. So yes, I know Saquon seems unstoppable, but maybe if there's one team that can do it, it might be the Lions. So we just got to see that matchup. That would be a great one for the NFC Championship game. But, man, I mean, the Eagles are just, what a way to bounce back. I really thought that locker room was shaky and didn't have as much confidence as I thought. But, look, I was wrong. Hands up. You got to give props to the Eagles when they're due. And for the Rams, sometimes your defense just isn't good enough. You just can't stop Saquon Barkley when he's playing like that. So it's a tough loss for the Rams. But luckily, their division's close. And also shout out, we said this last week, we were going to pin and shout out a bold take commented on our last week's recap video. So shout out our winner here for this comment, SRR475. He commented, here's a pretty bold take, and I hope I'm wrong as an Eagles fan, LOL, but I think the Commanders could have beaten the Eagles with Marshawn Lattimore. Very concerned for the upcoming game with them. That's an interesting one because we're going to get to the Commanders soon. And at this point, with the way the Commanders' defense is playing, you better hope Marshawn Lattimore can make more of an impact because he certainly didn't do that against Cooper Rush. But yeah, shout out SRR475 for the winning comment. I like that take, and it's going to be very interesting to see what the Commanders can do to bounce back from their losing streak. We'll get to that game in a couple games, but let's move on to the game that happened just last night, Chargers-Ravens. The Ravens win 30-23. It was the Harbaugh brothers facing off. John Harbaugh is now 3-0 against Jim Harbaugh in the NFL. And honestly, this is the first time you saw a couple cracks in the Chargers defense this year. They've been very solid up to this point. But I think Lamar kind of wanted to prove a point after last week's loss to the Steelers. A lot of people were talking about how he can't win some of these big games. And what a perfect time to do it against a good defense, a good coach, a team that also has 7 wins, and really put up a solid performance. 3 total touchdowns for Lamar. Justice Hill had a big play. And then if you want to just switch over to the Chargers really quick, because this is a game that was close and it was decent, but not much storyline-wise. The only other thing I want to say is Quentin fucking Johnston is one of the worst. He was doing good this season. And then, of course, I know nobody wants to hear about my fantasy team. This is the last time I'll talk about it, I promise. But of fucking course, the one time I need him on Monday Night Football, he gets 5 drops, 0 points. What the fuck? What are you doing? This isn't last year. First round pick my ass. So, Quentin Johnston, I don't know what you're doing. And I don't know why they even kept going back to him. So that was just a classic. That was like how the Chargers lost half their games last year. So I'm sorry, Chargers fans, even though I shouldn't really care. Actually, it's good that you guys lost, but just ridiculous. I hate just watching wide open passes. I can catch that shit. Anyways, let's move on to the 3 most wild games. Now, I was at the Chiefs-Panthers game. That's going to be the last game we're talking about. I heard that I missed a crazy witching hour, and it was because of these next 2 games we're going to talk about. The first one, Vikings-Bears. Al, I'm sure you were shitting yourself the entire time. I had my brother texting me. He's a Vikings fan. Just crazy shit was happening at the end. I went back and rewatched it, and yes, it definitely lived up to the drunk game hype. And Caleb Williams, let's talk about the Bears really quick because they've just been suffering just weird loss after weird loss, especially at home. Like they've had the Hail Mary, the block kick, and then the comeback, and then still losing in overtime after recovering an onside kick. So props to Bears fans for just fighting through it. Look, if you're a Bears fan, the best thing you could say right now is that now you're out of the playoffs, so just keep losing games, but have Caleb Williams look better and better each week. And I think that's what he's been doing the last couple weeks. Caleb Williams had some crazy throws in this game. He had one where he was like leaping off of his feet downfield. He had a great touchdown pass. He had a great first down run. So I like that he's building up his confidence like that. You just got to get rid of Shane Waldron and Matt Eberflus. The coaching is terrible. Build up that offensive line. And honestly, keep losing at this point because you just need to build around Caleb. With the Vikings, I actually feel like the Vikings were the story of the season the first 5 weeks, and they have really slipped under the radar. And they are the most quiet 9-2 team I think I've ever witnessed, seriously. And that's saying a lot because they were really in the limelight at the beginning of the year. But props to them. They keep kind of squeaking out these weird wins. And I hate to say it, I told Al this before the podcast started. I can just picture the storylines now. They're the 5th seed. They go into Atlanta. And something happens where they just fucking blow it at the end. I don't know what it is. I'm sorry, Vikings fans. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you get one on Kirk Cousins, but it just feels like because you're winning so many games again now, that and Sam Darnold played well last game, but it feels like all those problems are kind of being washed away, put aside, and like, it'll be fine. We'll get to it later. We're 9-2, but I don't know, like almost blowing it to the Bears and almost losing to the Jaguars. Like, it's a lot of little weird, and I shouldn't be talking because people are like, the Chiefs literally can't blow anybody out. But look, we won Super Bowls. Anyways, I don't know. I don't have a full trust in the Vikings right now, but it's fun to see them win. I like when the Vikings are good, and I like when they make the playoffs because it always makes for something really interesting happening. So there you go. Second to last game, Cowboys-Commanders. This was probably the weirdest fourth quarter I've seen since Vikings-Bills 2 years ago, where it was like 3-3 halfway into the third quarter, and then, what was it, 54 combined points in the fourth quarter, something crazy like that. Just the back and forth between the Commanders finally coming back a little bit with Zach Ertz, and then Kevontae Turpin dropping the kick return, hitting the nastiest spin move I think I've ever seen in my life, taking off for a touchdown, and then the Terry McLaurin play afterwards, and then Austin Seaver. I almost put it in the background. We wanted to do a Thanksgiving. By the way, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. But we almost put his face in the background. He was just like this, and rightfully so. He's had a good season, and he completely fucked up the game by missing that extra point at the end, and then just everything's going wild, and then you're like, you know what? People are recovering onside kicks lately. Let's try one. And then boom, Wanya Thomas, or whatever his name is, from the Cowboys, just takes it. And it's actually a bad decision by him. I mean, it ended up being good, obviously, because he scored. But what are you doing? Fall on top of the ball. There were 2 guys with an angle on you about to take you out. You could have fumbled on that. Luckily, you're fast enough to take off for a touchdown, but that was a crazy play. And everything about this fourth quarter was insane. It was drunk. And I'm definitely sad I missed it on TV at least, but it was fun watching it back and seeing all the chaos. The only other thing I want to say about this game is, yes, the Commanders, of course, have now been on a 3-game losing streak. Could have been a 4-game if it wasn't for that Hail Mary. Could be 6-6 right now, honestly. And Jaden Daniels, we said this, I think, a couple weeks ago, that ever since his rib injury now, it looks like he's a lot more timid. He's not running the ball well enough anymore. I think he has like a 73 passer rating or quarterback rating, which is not very good. He only has 3 touchdown passes, so not loving what the Commanders are doing right now. I actually think they're going to miss the playoffs if they continue this. It's the Cliff Kingsbury Cliff. Every single time Cliff Kingsbury is running an offense, they start the season off great in the first half and then completely die out in the second half. I hope it doesn't happen. I'm rooting for the Commanders, but we'll see. All right, finally, moving on to the game I went to. It's the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Carolina Panthers. Yes, I did buy a Panthers hat at the team store because they have good colors. Sorry, I'm a real fan, I promise. Anyways, let's talk about my experience at the game really quick. Honestly, look, I've been to Arrowhead one time. That will always be my favorite game I've ever witnessed. Just first time going to your favorite team stadium, especially Arrowhead. Such a great atmosphere. But I gotta be honest, this was a game I was eyeing for a long time. I like these random matchups. I wanted to see the Chiefs playing Carolina. It only happens every 8 years. That stadium might be gone the next time they play each other in Carolina. So, I took a trip out there. It was a great city, a fun time. Tons of Chiefs fans. We were walking on Saturday, the day before the game, and every third person we walked by in the city was wearing Chiefs gear. It was crazy. The city was completely overtaken by Chiefs fans. The stadium was 75% red. I mean, I'll put up some pictures. I'll send to Al to put up here just from the game itself. But look, as a viewer of football, yes, it was a great game and atmosphere to have something that close and wild. And the Panthers fans definitely showed out, even though there was definitely more Chiefs fans at the stadium. They were loud, though. The Panthers fans were loud, and they were rowdy when they were coming back. And that was fun, just as a viewer. But I'm a Chiefs fan, and I'm also an analyst on a podcast. So if I'm talking objectively here, this has been the Chiefs for the last 2 seasons. They just go out and have one-score games with the best teams in the NFL and the worst teams in the NFL. So am I completely shocked? Of course not. But it would just be nice one time. I know we're 10-1, and this is just a good problem to have, and I really shouldn't be complaining. And I promise you, I'm spoiled. I recognize that. And I'm really not complaining that much. But it would be nice to play a bad opponent and actually blow them out. Because it does stick in my head just a little bit that, yeah, we actually could just blow it in the wild card round. Even though we've literally never proved that with Patrick Mahomes. The worst we've ever ended is in an AFC championship game. But when you don't blow out opponents, it just makes you on edge consistently. And yes, the payoff is always great at the end if you're winning Super Bowls. But, what are we doing? And this was a game. We've been talking about the offense all season, how they've been kind of whatever. Mahomes played his best game of the year. Our offense was completely fine. He finally had no turnovers in this game, 3 touchdowns. I loved watching our offense. It was great. Noah Gray, 4 touchdowns in 2 games. He's just completely on fire, so that was fun to watch. But now, of course, it's the defense. And yes, it pertains to Jalen Watson getting hurt a few weeks ago as our cornerback too. And now all of our backups look to be some of the worst in the NFL, and it's really hard to watch. Bryce Young have his best game of his career. I went to 2 Jets games last year, and both times Zach Wilson had 2 of his best games of his career. And now this time Bryce Young has his best. What is with me going to games and these shitty quarterbacks having amazing games? I don't understand it. So of course this game is 30-27. Of course it was. It wouldn't happen any other way with the 2024 Chiefs. So I want to sit here and complain, but I gotta just trust the process at this point. There's a lot of newer Chiefs fans, and I'm young, so I guess I'm technically newer, but I've been a fan my whole life since 2005 or whatever. But a lot of newer Chiefs fans are complaining about the Chiefs. You gotta just remember, we're 10-1. Everybody is putting out their best against the Chiefs. This is a lot of people's Super Bowl against us, so they're playing their best. The Chiefs are kind of just trying to coast and figure things out, especially with all these injuries we've had, and Mahomes can't trust his offensive line. So we have a vanilla playbook. We're doing just enough to win these games. It looks ugly, but I just got to keep sane and confident that we will pull out our best football in the playoffs, especially when we're healthier. So it was a fun game to go to. I know it sucks that it was close, but we got to stay positive because we're 10-1. 10 years from now, I'm going to be like, Sam, what the fuck were you doing complaining about a team, your favorite team coming off of back-to-back Super Bowls, being 10-1, when you just went to your dream game that you've been dreaming about for 8 years? So honestly, I'm not going to complain that much. It was a fun game to go to. And then last thing I want to say, shout out our ranking every NFL stadium video that came out almost a year ago. You can look up here if you want to watch it, but I put the Panthers stadium in why are we still here, which means that they should probably move or get a new stadium, which I get it because it's one of the older stadiums in the NFL, but just going there with the downtown view and the blue seats, honestly, it was like a mini Arrowhead too. If I had to redo that ranking video, and we might redo it this offseason, I would put it up at least 2 tiers. It was a very fun stadium to go to. Louder than you think. The end zones were sick. I just like the vibe, honestly. It was a good vibe there. Like I said, we'll have a little video coming out with my experience there, but I would rate my full-blown experience going to that game, honestly, a 9 out of 10. The only thing that beat it was my experience at Arrowhead, which was a 10 out of 10. I'm going to reserve all 10 out of 10s for if I ever go to a Super Bowl or Arrowhead. But there you go. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and that's our recap. And just like last week, if you guys want to leave another bull take in the comments, go ahead and do that. We're going to pin you at the end of the week and shout out whoever has the best bull take in next video. But that's it, guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, comment down below, and follow us at First and Gold on TikTok and Instagram. I'm Sam Gold, your host. We'll see you next time for the next video. Goodbye.